which is
All right, so today's date is 8/26/25. And our topic is still solving linear equations. Remember, our goal is to isolate the variable, get the variable by itself. And this is part A. Now, if you're seeing this, it is because on your first little general assessment, I see that you can use some more practice on this. Now, when you get your test, you'll see problems highlighted in yellow. That represents the bare minimum problems you need to do to complete this unit or this section with a 70%. So, based on what I saw, I want you to prepare just on this. Then, when you're ready, you let me know. I can move you on to part B. All right? So, let's get started. The section I'm talking about will only deal with problems starting with Rule 4. All right? So, write this down. All right? Rule 4. Rule 4 talks about, it says gather the variable terms to the same side. Now, when I say same side, I'm talking about if you got equal sign, you want to get all your variable terms on the same side. That's what I mean by that. Now, the way you do that is to add the opposite. Now, when I say add the opposite of what, I'm talking about the variable term. All right, let's just get the three rules. Make sure we have them locked in right here. Rule 5 would be next is to isolate the variable term. All right, so now you have one variable term. I want you to get it by itself. Now, what I mean, well, how you do that is by adding the opposite again. But this time, you'll be adding the opposite of the constant term. And then rule 6. Rule 6 says to, hold on, let me plug in. I see my training energy right now. There we go. All right, rule 6 is to now isolate just the variable. And the way you do that is to divide by the coefficient. All right. Now, just so you remember, in the term 7g, the coefficient, the coefficient is the number that's right beside the variable, right there. That's the coefficient. Whatever that is, that you divide by. If the coefficient was negative, you divide by -7. If it was positive, you divide by just regular 7. We'll get to that. Matter of fact, let's get to it now. Let's see. Let's start our first problem. 7g equal -14. The first thing I want you to do to your problem is identify the parts. Here we go. When you first begin a problem, wherever the variable is, I want you to label that as the variable term. So VT, that's the variable term. And then the other term you have over here is called the constant term because there's no variable with that term. It's just a regular number. And let's go ahead and separate our equal sign, our parts to different sides using equal sign. So we labeled the parts that we see and we divided our problem into two separate parts. Equal sign always means that we have two sides to the problem, two sides of the story, right? Now, let's start a rule 4 to see what we can do. Rule 4 says gather the variable terms. That means you have variable terms on both sides of the equal sign. You do not. You have a variable term on the left side, constant term on the right side. So we can't do rule 4. Let's go to rule 5. It says isolate the variable term. It says that means getting the variable term by itself. Let's look at our equal sign. Let's look on the left side. Is the variable term already by itself? It is. So we can't move a constant term because the variable term is already by itself. So let's go to rule 6. It says isolate the variable. All right. Let's look at this. Now, when I look on this side, it's the variable. It's g by itself. It is not. So that means we have to divide by the coefficient. What's the coefficient for this term again? 7. So we're going to divide both sides by 7. Whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do to the other. Now, when you divide, the 7 over 7 divide out. So that's gone. What's left is g is equal to, in the calculator, negative 14 divided by 7. That's negative 2. All right. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Let's try this one. Seven p minus 4 equal 10. All right. I want you to label what we have in the problem. So in this problem, I want you to give me 7p, that's a variable term. Negative 4, that's a constant term. 10, that's also a constant term. All right. Now we've labeled the parts and we're going to split the problem where the equal sign is. Right there. So now we know we got two sides. Now we see what's on the same side and what's on the same side. Now, let's start with our rules. Rule 4, gather the variable terms. That's what it says. Rule 4, gather the variable terms to the same side. Now let's look at our problem. Do you have variable terms on opposite sides? You do not. You already got variable term on the same side. It's just on one side. So we don't have to worry about rule 4. Rule 5, it says isolate the variable term. Let's look at the side with the variable term is on. Is the variable term by itself? It is not. The constant term is over here with it. So we need to move the constant term. The rule says, well, how do you move a constant term? By doing what? Adding the opposite of the constant term. So what kind of constant term is that? A negative 4. So what are we going to do? We're going to add 4 to both sides. So here we go. We're going to add, or you put positive 4 on both sides of the equal sign. All right. Now, we didn't do anything to 7p, so the 7p comes down. The negative 4 over positive 4, that cancels out. Equal sign always comes down. 10 plus 4 is how much? 14. All right. So we did rule 5. Let's go back and look at rule number 6. Now, rule number 6 says isolate the variable. Just the variable. So when I look at my problem, when I look at the side with the variable term is now on, it's the variable by itself. It is not. So if the variable is not by itself, you need to, how would it say it? Divide by the coefficient. What's the coefficient? The number part. So we're going to divide by that 7. So you don't do the opposite when you divide. Divide by that 7. And we're left with p is equal to 14 divided by, when you see a line between the problem, 14 divided by, that is divided by. So 14 divided by 7, that's 2. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right. Let's try this one. 14 equal negative 1 minus 3w. All right. What I need you to do is identify what's in the problem. Let's identify what's in the problem. All right. So, that color's good. 14 is a constant term. Remember, a constant term is just a number. Number that stands alone. Negative 1 is also a constant term. It's just a regular number. And 3w is, well, negative 3w, because that sign goes with that number that's in front of. So negative 3w is a variable term because it has a w with it. And now we're going to make sure we split this problem into two sides. All right. Now let's go through the rules and see what we have. Rule 1. Well, rule 4. It says gather the variable terms. Let's look at our equal sign. Do we have variable terms on opposite sides? No. Our variable term is already together on one side. All right. There's no variable terms on both sides. So we can't do rule number 4. Rule number 5. It says isolate the variable term. When I look at my problem, go to the side where the variable term is, right here. Is the variable term by itself? It is not. What's over here with it? That constant term. So look at the rule. So we have to do this. Isolate the variable term by adding the opposite of the constant term. So if we want to move this constant term, we got to add its opposite. Remember, our goal is to get the variable term by itself right now. So we need to move the constant term. So we do that by adding the opposite. What's the opposite of negative 1? Positive 1. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you do to the other side. All right, I'm going to go from left to right. 14 plus 1 is 15. Bring the equal sign down at all times. Negative 1 and plus 1, that should cancel out. All right, that's gone. What's left? Negative 3w. Don't forget, when you cross out the ones, that sign is still there. Now, let's look at what we have now. Let's go back to it. We just finished rule 5. Now let's go to rule 6. Isolate the variable. All right, when I look at my problem, I got a constant term here, a variable term here, but it's the variable isolated. It's the w by itself. No, we need to move that coefficient. What's the coefficient again? That negative 3. So how we move the coefficient? By dividing by that coefficient. So we're going to divide both sides by that negative 3. That's the only time you don't write the whole thing down. We only need the negative 3 to move, and you only remove that by dividing it. So we divide by that negative 3. All right, we're going to start from left to right. 15 divided by negative 3 is negative 5. Equal sign comes down. The negative 3 over negative 3, that cancels out. We divide them. What's left is w. All right. All right, let me make sure you got this one right here just before I move on. What if your problem was (11) equal n minus 8? Let's identify the parts. A number by itself is a constant term. Now, when you start, I want you to go ahead and call it the variable term. We start the problem off. And the negative 8 here is also a constant term. And we're going to separate that problem into two parts. Let's start from the top. It says, gather the variable term. That's the first thing I want you to look for. Gathering the variable terms. Let me fix this. All right. Now, if you look at your equal sign, do you have variable terms on both sides? You do not. So you can't do rule 4. Rule 5 says isolate the variable term. Look at your equal sign. That's the wall. It's the variable term by itself. It is not. That means you have to move this constant term to the other side. Well, how do you do that? You add the opposite of the constant term. That's the one you can move it. So that's a minus 8 or negative 8. You add 8 to both sides. All right. 11 plus 8 is 19. Equal sign comes down. And the n, we didn't put anything under that. So the n comes down. Now, this problem is done. Well, we didn't get to step 6. Well, let's look at it. Step 6 says to isolate the variable. Who is the variable? N is already by itself. All right. Let's do the last one. Let's do the last one. So this next problem, see what we have here. Nine plus 5x equals 6x plus 4. All right. So let's go ahead and split this into two parts. Let's go ahead and do that. Equal signs here. All right. Let's identify what's in the problem. 9 is a regular number, so that is a constant term. 5x is a number with a variable, so this is a variable term. 6x is a number with a letter, so that is a variable term. 4 is just a regular number, so it is a constant term. All right, so let's go through the rules. Rule 4. Rule 4 says to gather the variable terms to the same side. Let's look at our problem. When I look at our problem, we have two sides. Now, it says gather the variable terms to the same side. Are the variable terms on the same side? They are not. So we have to use this rule 4. Well, how do we use it? How do we gather the variable term to the same side? By adding the opposite of the variable term you want to move. So let's look at it. We have two variable terms. It is a rule of thumb. If you have to move a variable term, move your smallest one. Move your smallest one. So 5x or 6x, I would say move 6x. And it says how? By adding the opposite. What's the opposite of 5x? Negative 5x. So put negative 5x here, whatever you do to one side. Now you have to make sure like terms are with like terms. You wouldn't put this 5x with this 4 because it's not a variable term. Variable terms go with variable terms. All right? So anyway, you underline because anytime you add the opposite, you underline. Now, let's go from left to right and finish the equation. So the 9 comes down. 5x and negative 5x cancels out. Equal sign comes down. 6x minus 5x, or 6x plus negative 5, is 1x, or just x, plus 4. All right. So we've done rule number 4. Now remember, we go to the rule number 5. Rule number 5 says to isolate the variable term. That's rule number 5. By adding the opposite, the constant term. Isolate the variable term. Who's the variable term at this point? X is the variable term at this point. So you got to get the variable term by itself by moving who's on the same side? That constant term here. That plus 4. So the opposite of plus 4 is negative 4. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side. Underline means you add the opposite. Left to right. 9 plus negative 4 is 5. Equal. The x has nothing under, so it comes down. And 4 plus negative 4 cancels out. It's gone. The last step says to isolate the variable. We got good news, people. It says isolate the variable. Let's look at the problem. Is the variable already on the side of the equal sign by itself? It is. So you're done. You're done. So let's do one more of these. Make sure we got it. Let's try this one. Your problems. Here are your problems. I want you to label each term. Variable term, constant terms, like that. Split the problem where the equal sign is, and then I want you to solve. Show all your work. All right.